How old is
I don't
it?
know.
Do you have a copy of the subdivision? Do you want me to?
Part of it. We know.
Yeah.
Sorry. She did, I asked her.
And that's just-
If we need more, we scrap it.
Yeah. She blew it. It's hot. I would so that last time kept getting gay. 2 days. Sometimes I stayed up all night. I stayed up all night. No. You looks like you need to.
It's not on the agenda. So.
I rode by it in the car. 2:30 p.m.
Wait, when's it 2:30?
That was at 2:30 p.m. Spotted on Steam Mill Road.
But it-
Headed back towards
Which one?
Steam Mill.
Who's?
Who's not you? It should say up there on the screen.
Can you just get rid of this? Can you get rid of this?
He's tried to click it a bunch of times, and it's not doing anything. Yeah, it was, yeah, it was blinking, but not really.
Okay, here's my number. It's 793.
You put it there.
No, that's right.
Work?
Yeah,
That's
I think
okay.
it- yeah, she-
It came back.
that's it.
Look at that. So she put it up there. So got it.
Maybe the meeting's overpriced.
It was approved, but it was years ago. And there's no place else for it.
Oh.
You know, I said,
I wonder if the echo, I saw 2 zooms down at the bottom there. Is one of those just a second
I never.
input that was reading or
I was
something?
planning.
On the taskbar at the bottom, it looks like there's 2 zooms in there.
Yeah, it's.
If you just hover over it, it might show both of them. No, that's not the meeting. That doesn't look like everything is.
You've got to turn to mute yourself.
Oh. Oh, I
Yeah.
see. It was
Yeah.
the speaker. Okay, that was my fault.
There we go.
Okay.
Small detail.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's great to have an audience. Welcome, everyone. Now, before we get to what most people are here for, we have a public hearing on the flood damage prevention law. So I'd like to open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to comment on this law. Anyone? So with that, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to the regular agenda. There's one addition that I have to change it signatory on old bank accounts, which if you're okay with, I'll put at the end of business. Does anybody have anything else?
No.
Okay, over to the floor. Does anyone want to address the group at this juncture?
I have something I want to say. It has nothing to do with anything about the town business, but I don't know, some people here might live in Danby, and on Danby Southfield Facebook page, this morning a dog ran out from, I think from Hornbrook. It looks like a red golden doodle, And his name is Puka, and people have been looking, and I don't, so far, just a few minutes ago, he hasn't been found yet, so keep that in mind, and I do have a phone number. Thanks.
At large.
At large,
Mhm.
unfortunately, ran after a deer as dang deer.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Dogs do that.
yeah.
Yes, Rhonda.
Oh, okay, I don't know where I am here. There I am. Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments. The the document that Greg is presenting is very nearly the same as it was the last time he presented it. And I want to say that my opinions of it have not changed. I feel that the document is poorly worded. It references Ray Mayo as having lives. I'd like to know how many lives he has. There still is no Exhibit A attached to the document, and I think it needs a lot of work. I also disapprove of the fact that it's giving the town till 2040 to actually get this thing done. I think we could get it done much, much sooner than that if we put ourselves together and got it done. But that's one thing. Another thing that I wanted to say is that the county highway department came along South Danby Road the other day and oiled and stoned it. And the width of the road went from 20 feet, the paved portion of the road went from 20 feet 1 inch to 24 feet 3 inches, which means that I lost 4 feet 2 inches. My case in court is still ongoing, and I stopped the fellow who was supposed to be the supervisor of this whole stoning project and asked him why he felt he had a right to be doing this. And he said, "We have a 50-foot right of way on this road." And I said, "Do you have any documentation for that?" And he said, no, he did not. So we're still back at that whole business. And this applies basically to most of the town and county roads in Danby. So I just wanted you to know that that is still going on. And sometime when there aren't so many people in the audience, I could answer questions about that, I'm sure. Okay, thank you.
Ted,
Sure. Whoop. Yeah, sure. I attended the presentation by the Safe Streets folks last week. I believe it was on April 30th. And I see the document that is attached to the agenda. It is the same document that is on their website. Unfortunately, that document has no specifics as far, I didn't read it that carefully. It is 30 pages long, but in a quick perusal, I did not see any specifics for Danby. If they are asking you to approve this, just the concept that there should be safer streets in Danby, well, that's one thing. But you have seen, and the public has not seen, a more specific document that actually describes what is proposed for Danby, and that, without showing it to the public, I do not think you should vote to approve this thing unless the public has seen this and commented on it. I did ask 2 questions during the meeting. Catherine was there. One question was, who pays for this? And the answer was, well, we will also help you find grants from the federal government. Not in the next 4 years, boys, ladies, gents. I don't think that'll happen. So do bear that in mind. I don't think you should move forward with this in any specific way other than a general thank you for sending us, but we need to see some more information. And that, I think, covers the only item that looked interesting. I wish the flood damage actually that there had been links available to, they're not hard to find, I admit, but some people don't use Google every day and have trouble with it. Links to the flood maps and the meaning of the program. I see no problem to approving it, but I wish there was more coverage of it. Thanks.
Gary, here, hand up, Gary. But then we're not hearing, we're neither hearing nor seeing you. Okay, well. He inadvertently put his hand up before he walked away.
Could the host lower his hand so that Gary isn't stuck in the top left?
Is that what sticks him up there? Horrors, yeah. Okay, anybody else? No, okay, correspondence, don't believe there's any. Is that correct, Mariah?
None, correct.
Or announcements?
I have an announcement.
Okay,
I will be out of the office for 4 weeks, starting May 15th. Blake Savoy will be taking meeting minutes at the next town board meeting on Monday, May 19th. Cindy Katz is lined up to take meeting minutes on the June 2nd board meeting. I will be available by phone and email starting around May 20th. I will not be able to work or drive until approximately June 10th. And the reason that I will be out is I am getting a new metatarsophalangeal joint.
Oh,
That
boy.
sounds important.
exciting.
So, and Gary was, Gary dropped out, but now he's back.
Mariah, could you send those dates in an email too? I
Sure.
didn't get them down. Thanks.
Absolutely, of course.
There's something else. Oh, you want to say anything about the May gathering,
Oh,
Memorial Day?
oh, I can.
Sure.
Once again, we are doing Taps Across America. And the program here will be at 3 o'clock, beginning a little before that for people to get here. And that is May 30th, the governmental date for Memorial Day.
Not May 30th.
What?
Not May 30th.
May 26th. Thank you.
Yeah, the 30th is actually
The 30th is actually downtown at DeWitt at the park. I mean, at the cemetery at the War Memorial Grave. DeWitt Park. Yeah.
Joel,
Thank you.
Joel, can you hear me?
There we are. There's Gary.
Yes.
All right, I had to go out and come back in. I just couldn't unmute myself.
Oh,
I have just a couple quick things. I was just interested in the lady that fell out in the parking lot the other day and hurt herself. Is she okay? Does anybody know?
first I hear of it, so I don't know.
I don't know. Mariah,
have
do you
not-
know?
I do not have an update, no.
She seemed to be hurt fairly bad. She couldn't move out there, so I was
Right.
worried about her.
I emailed Joel and Laura. I was looking for an incident report if one needed to be filled out.
Okay, and my next thing is the one resolution that we're going to get into later on, the Vision Zero policy. Is
Yeah,
that a real thing?
well, not yet.
What do you think it should be?
Well, the vision is a laudable one, that we're looking for 0 fatalities on our roads.
Well, we've had one in 4 years, and if we cut them in half, that means we're only going to have half a fatality in the next 10 years or whatever.
Yeah,
And
Well,
if you read the first page, it's all fine and good. But when you get to the second page, now you're trying to group everybody into separate boxes. Basically, I guess what you're saying is children, older adults, people of color, people with disabilities, and people who are unhoused don't know how to cross the street. Is that what we're saying? I mean,
don't
that's
think-
what the first paragraph says on page 2.
Well, no, they
I
have,
don't read it that way.
some have trouble crossing the street maybe, so.
I mean, why does it turn in from something good trying to protect the people to all of a sudden now it's a racial thing? And if you read page 2, that's all it says. I mean, you're talking about
Disproportional.
the town of Danby adopts the goal of eliminating racial profiling and inadequate enforcement of traffic violations. What are we talking about?
Oh, talk about targeting people because of their race. Of course, the town of Danby doesn't do that because we rely on the sheriff's department for enforcement and state police.
I mean, I've been here 17 years as judge and I've never seen anything like that. Nothing in court. And I didn't know if you were,
Good.
are you trying to put the blame back on the police officers now that you're going to eliminate them from racial profiling? Or
Gary, I didn't write this report, Gary. We participated in this countywide assessment, hoping that if we might get something out of it that would help make our streets safer. And what we have is a draft report. There's an opportunity for anybody who wants to comment on that draft report. We are asked to endorse it basically with a resolution, which is what we'll talk about later on the agenda. But the reality is that we're being asked to vote to approve a plan which is still a draft, so we might want to hold off until it's not.
Yeah.
But we're in the comment period now, and the kind of questions that, the comments that you are making and that Ted's making and that Rhonda's making ought to be made to the people putting this thing together, so that they can respond and before we deal with it.
well, shouldn't our board be responding back to these people and telling them the pushback they're getting or you're getting from them?
Well, we did talk about this quite a bit, and we have had two focused discussions on it and given them feedback as to what we thought the problem areas were in the town, and then responded to what they recommended for those problem areas in the town, which are the intersection of 3496 and Station and Maple in West Danby, and the stretch from Michigan Hollow to Miller over here in Danby are the focal points for the street improvements. So, take a look at those and see whether or not you think they make sense. We've already fed back on it, but public comment is also wanted.
It's hard to comment on those unless the maps are available to the public, which they are not currently.
I absolutely agree.
I guess that I just don't understand that, at least page 2 on that, and on the way it's presented in the minutes here in the board meeting.
Mhm.
Page 1 was fine. Page 2, when it gets into all the other stuff, I just don't understand who you're going to get to enforce this, how you're going to enforce this, and for what reason if we don't have a problem with it.
No, like I said, that's a countywide plan, of which Danby's is but one small portion. And that looks at the whole big picture. It implies, as you say, that there's some, problem with enforcement that I don't know that we can point to. Why don't you point it out to them?
Pardon me?
Why not make these comments to the people who are drafting the report?
Okay. That's all I have.
Thanks. Where were we? Announcements. Which brings us to the event of the evening, which was presentation by our Design Connect team.
Can you let me share? Mariah?
I don't know that I can, but Mariah can.
The microphone should be there. Who's gonna talk? Oh, okay. So there's the microphone here. What I'll do
Yes, why don't you close
is
it?
I'll bring this down. It's just gonna move this down.
Who wants to stand?
Yeah, you can.
Can
sit
you
there.
share now?
Yeah, try.
Should be able to.
Pretty much just be like this. Would be, this is the town board
And
here.
where's the slides gonna be?
Yeah, the slides will be right up
Then
there.
can we all just stand here? Is it?
You could, or you could just keep stay seated so folks in the back
Everybody
can
can
see
see,
the
yeah.
presentation. It might be
Okay.
just makes
Cool.
sense just to stay, yeah.
If you all speak clearly and slowly and loudly, then you'll pick up even in the back, some of
So
the
should
people will
we-
pick up, but you have to speak up. That would help.
Yeah, I would look this way, like at the board. when-
Okay.
when
Yeah.
folks do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's also looking at the Zoom audience.
Yes, that too.
That's cool.
So who among us attendees is it? It's you, Greg, that's it.
Is there any way that we could be? Because the team wants to be able to point to the maps.
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah, however you all need to orient yourselves here, go for it. And then we can just make sure this microphone is the other way.
Yeah.
There you go. Got it? You all want to, does anybody want to navigate this? Like, how to put it here and then you just.
I can stand on this side and then I can wait for someone else to go over there because we're out of bounds.
Out of balance.
Get my phone.
Because we're screen sharing, they don't see anything in the screen anyway.
Yeah, we'll just wave to them from here.
Okay. All right.
So thank you all for coming. It's exciting to see some turnout both here and online. I just wanted to say a quick introduction. So I'm Emily DeSalvo. I'm the project manager for Team Danby at Design Connect this semester. My co-project manager, Leo, couldn't be here. He has another important meeting, but I brought some really talented members of the team. I got Ray, I got Brandon, we got Bianca, Ryan, Carrie Ann, and Imogen. And we're all really excited to show you what we've been up to this semester. And thanks to those of you who have been with us along the process of putting this together and being so engaged at our community engagement events.
Hang on, I'm just gonna get this better screen.
Even better.
Get rid of this.
Full screen.
Optimize this giant screen.
Wow.
There we go.
All right.
So. There we go. So for those of you that don't know, Design Connect is a student-run community design organization, and every semester there are about 4 projects and teams of about 12 students run by 2 project managers will take on a design project in the surrounding upstate New York community. This semester we were tackling the Dobson property over there on Route 96, owned by our good friend Shane. And we were able to put together a master plan for what we feel is the best use for that piece of land. And all these people shared their talents based on how many credit hours they signed up for and also just what their background is. Some of them are architecture students, some of them are engineers, environmental science, you name it. All right,
A diverse group.
yeah.
We have any botanists on the room?
No, but we did do a look at the trees, so don't you worry. So throughout the semester, we were able to kind of like refine our vision based on the feedback of you guys. So once again, thank you. Initially, we thought we would put together a dense neighborhood given the allowances of the hamlet scale zoning with a mixture of both commercial and residential offerings. But over time, we realized that we wanted to create something that we felt could feasibly happen here in Danby, but also reflected what you guys wanted and could be done in our semester, which was a constraining time period. So we scaled the project back to the point of a senior housing development with a community center, daycare, recreational amenities, all ideas that were shown to the group and approved by you guys. So thank you again. All right. And I think something that's important to note is that Rick Dobson has been the guiding light of this project, his legacy in town, his spirit of community engagement, the way he collected cars and he built the mountain that's the most prominent feature of the site. So honoring his legacy was a big goal of ours. And among our other goals would be age inclusive, true to Danby, realistic, both for the town, but also for our semester and meeting your needs. So I'm going to pass it over to Bianca to go through the research that brought us to this point.
Yeah, so I won't go too much into the demographics, as I'm sure you guys are quite aware of the demographics of your own town, but here we have some graphs on the demographics of Danby that we ourselves looked at before preparing this plan. We did extensive research on preceding documents, including the Sustainable Hamlets Development Plan, the Housing Needs Assessment, the Danby Comprehensive Plan, the Sewer Wastewater Treatment Study, and the Soil Study. So the Sustainable Hamlets Plan and the Comprehensive Plan both prioritize concentrating growth around existing population centers, specifically the hamlets, clustering housing in pods, conservation of rural character, and planning for an economically viable and socially diverse community. What we got from the sewer water study and the housing needs assessment was a recommendation for a gravity collection system to engineered containers for central Danby, which had a projected cost of $2,500,000. And there was a need for affordable and senior housing that was very much emphasized in the housing needs assessment, with 74% of renters in Danby being rent burdened, and a quarter of all homeowners being burdened by housing expenses.
Hey everyone, so for those of us who I can tell some of you have been to all of our events that we've done in this town. You saw us first at the food and drink for our preliminary engagement, and then we came back for the town hall meeting we had where we gathered some more valuable input, and here we are now for our final presentation. So as you can see, a lot of these events were really dealt with just kind of bringing in as much feedback and information from you guys that we could then analyze and then put together into a feasible but also helpful plan for everyone. And so we usually had a survey at each meeting, which many of you filled out, and we also tried to address any questions that arose from a variety of different people and also different interests. The open house, we had a more specific approach to the property where we would present ideas that necessarily we had or we had done our research on, and try to gather what maybe you liked, didn't like, felt so about. And from here is where we really got the design tweaked into its final form. As some survey data here shows, we incorporated people from a diverse set of ages and experience or living in Danby.
Yeah, and I'll just say that like the survey results are directly reflected in everything that we put together in the plan. So we hope you guys can see that.
So this is probably the most important graphic right now. What we really found out is that the project really needed to be mixed age. We wanted to bring on kids needing childcare for many people who regularly commute to Ithaca. We also found that mixed age and mixed income level housing was a big need. And then besides that, it seems like everybody wanted more recreation space, maybe more town space for future meetings, maybe some summer events, you name it. But really from here, we really try to then make a realistic and approachable design plan from the most prominent necessities.
So I'm going to pass it over to some members of the design team to go through some of our maps that you can also see over here and our process and our project timeline. Do you want me to do it? Okay, so I'll run through the timeline, then I'll pass it over to them.
Okay.
But first we started out with research, which Bianca went through. Then we did our community engagement and some, changing of our project scope as Brian outlined. And then we wrapped up our interviews, which maybe some of you were even interviewed. We did charrette planning where we all sat around and drew out what we thought would be the best sort of layout for the site. And we kind of talked about what we liked and disliked about each other's plans. We refined our site plan, the massing documents, the renderings, and here we are now, which it's been a triumph of a semester. Right.
Pinnacle anyway.
Yeah.
So part of the research that Emily mentioned earlier, the first few weeks of the project, we looked at different housing typologies that we want on site. And our project partners really stressed the fact that they wanted hamlet scale development and density. So we looked at some residents that are nearby, including the White Hawk Eco Village, it's right down there. Also the Eco Village in Ithaca, as well as the Chico Boiseville and Freeville cottages. And all of these four are good examples because they're clustered housing, which is good for community interaction, but also for the sharing of sewage and water systems. Can you talk where Stephen closer to yeah. As I was saying, it was good for the sharing of sewage and water systems. That's how we looked at them. And yeah, they're really important to our design. And in addition to that, we also looked at some precedents or examples of programs that are common in upstate New York, including parks, playgrounds, pavilions within a town square that we thought that you all would love on the site.
Oops. It's gonna turn the volume up. It's $1. Wow, that's an idea.
Right, we'll just stand close to you.
Yeah.
And really maybe speak a little slower and a little louder. I know there's a big crowd in here, and in order to take the minutes, Mariah can't understand it either. I mean, I'm using closed captions just to give you an example.
Okay, yeah, thank you. You're doing great. So for site context, to help you guys all visualize where it is in your own town, that's where it is in the middle. It's located near the corner of Route 96B and East Miller Road. And as you can see, other key locations in town are all within a 1 mile radius. It's that little circle in the middle, including locations including the town hall, Danby Food and Drink, Dotson Community Park. Yeah, so the site is really important location wise. And this is a satellite view image from November last year. As you can see, our site is very much blank canvas. There's so much to do with it. It's very evident that there's a past agricultural use, but prior or current years an industrial use.
Looking at our site, to the west, you can see that there's road access from New York State Route 96B. And there's also the Buttermilk Creek that runs through the site. And then there's also many abandoned vehicles on the site, as this used to be a vehicle scrapyard. And looking at the current built environment of the site, from left to right, Danby Motors and an abandoned horse stable and an abandoned shed. And after analyzing the site, we worked with initial planning ideas of what we imagine the site to look like in the future.
So our proposal is to activate this 50-acre site with a focus on community, and as well as this desire for density, for denser housing. That's what we're trying to incorporate, trying to figure out how we can have both a public space and as well as having a housing development. So we're proposing 2 types of housing developments. One is single family. Each unit is around 1,600 square feet. We also have townhouses, which is what you can see on the top part of the site, right, closer to the creek. Those are going to optimize views for Buttermilk Creek as well as its pond. This like much denser vegetated areas, more like a forest. But we're also talking about community, right? We noticed from our extensive site research that there is this key point of like, I think, integration and like where community can come together. That's the mountain. You drive down the road and you see this big mountain. This mountain, like you talk about Rick, right? Rick talks about community. Community is a big part of like, I think who he was. I wish I could have met him, but that's some of the stories I heard, right? So he built this mountain. Why? Because he said, oh, I want to be able to come together as a community to look at the view together. So we think that this is telling us that we want to build a community park. And we also heard from the community that we wanted to have a daycare in the community center. And so what better place to place it than to next to the pond and have a great view of the mountain, and as well as have great access from this main road coming down from Danby Road 96B. And we also have this auto shop like Brandon talked about earlier, right? This like abandoned auto shop. We still think that the structure itself is still integral. Like we can still use this structure and expand it so that we don't have to spend too much money on building a whole new facility. So we'll have this foundation, but we're just planning on renovating it and extending it for community use. And we also talk about daycare, right? Daycare is right next to this community center. So this adjacency is quite critical for us. And we think of this parking lot next to it. It's like a great addition for our community to enter there near the community center and then take these like meandering paths across. So that's how we're going to connect to the more private development far to the right, right? You can notice that there are two main roads coming out of 96B. Those are essentially our like main axes for development. We think we're developing from left to right, and that's where our development is going to be. Private is going to be behind the mountain. How we're going to have this unexpected interaction between different age groups is going to have these sort of like paths that run across like left to right, and this mountain in the center that sort of like makes a point that oh, we're gonna go here and we're gonna meet have like a good picnic or something.
Before you go on, the cluster of expanded expansion that you were talked about is based on the Danby Motors building. Where is that in the midst of the colored?
This one. So if you notice,
So the orange one is the existing?
so this is Danby Motor, right? 96B
Yeah.
on, like you can't really see it,
Yeah.
it's March. Danby Motors, and we're planning on extending it. Here, you see? Yeah. Feel free to come up.
We'd call that a pavilion.
Yeah, put lots of pavilions, sparsely populated, trying to sell you like a vision, you know, Greg's talking, it's like, oh, don't tell me the details. We want to give you a vision, if you want to see, well, like, what can happen, what we can activate on this sort of abandoned site, we want to clean it up. Shane's doing a great job, thank you so much, like. Right, if we want to clean it up, we want to create a vision, and then that's what we're proposing. Some more details on why we rationalize this plan, sort of, right?
So the location of the townhouses and the single family houses was largely determined by the soil conditions on the site. And soil characteristics, including its drainage, bearing capacity, permeability, are very important to determine where construction is possible and feasible. So using GIS, we determined that two types of soils are best used for, or are best suitable for construction. And it's the yield silt loam represented in this pinkish color or lighter purple. And also Phelps gravelly silt loam, which is this red. And you can see in this diagram that those are where our houses are located generally.
So circulation is another important part of the plan. We want to know how people will be able to navigate the site. And so we've shown in blue, there's going to be a two-grade road. So all of the developments that I previously talked about are accessible. We have a walking path in red and a bike and walking path in yellow. And that might be a little bit harder to see, but we're put it in areas where it's a little less steep and it'll be easy to navigate. But the goal here is really to make the site very accessible throughout both the like younger and older developments. And we also wanted for people to really be able to enjoy all of the green space that the site has to offer.
So sewer water infrastructure was kind of a major concern for a blank canvas site where provision for either is not very established just yet. So we looked at, as mentioned before, we looked at some precedents, including White Hawk Eco Village, and they had a really good sewage system where they had 30 housing units total. And there are 2 on-site wastewater management systems that service 15 each. So they only have 2. It's a very neat plan. So we're trying to do that here. So for example, for the single family houses, there are 26 houses total. One here will serve 14, one here will serve 12, and this is the same for the townhouses. And for water, we have a groundwater well right here located on the lower right corner. And it will connect to a water tower on top of the mountain. And this way there will supply water to all the housing units on site.
I think that's like a great addition to the mountain, like it serves much more also a functional purpose, like it allows us to store water, and as well as when you need it, you can release it down, like makes sense, gravity well.
Since it's on top of a mountain, would it need to have the tall stem, or would it be more like a ground level tank?
Yeah.
On the top of the mountain.
And the interesting thing is that fill with which that mountain was built is mostly shaly stuff, is pretty solid. But quite plausible to put it there.
Oh, okay. These are the tree plantings we were proposing. We did some research on riparian buffers. We did a lot of research on riparian buffers. Riparian buffers are critical to our stream ecosystems because one, it helps us filter this inevitable runoff that will come from these 6 townhouse developments, and as well as help us prevent soil erosion. and then as well as creating a very nice stream ecosystem for the flora and fauna and little animals that live in the stream. In terms of the other plantings on the site, we're proposing oak trees, maple trees, and cedar trees. We're also thinking about what the site could look like in the spring. So we proposed a cherry blossom orchard, but we're thinking that cherry blossoms only bloom for like 5 days. That is why we want to diversify the number of plantings that flower in the region. So we're going to do some more research on that. But stay tuned. I'm excited.
So did you create a key for like, are they?
Cherry blossoms are in pink, and then the maple trees, cedar trees are really this. But like Ray said, work in progress.
Yes.
Yeah. And also like the zones, you notice like there's sort of like 3. That's like the density of vegetation. So that's like pretty important to riparian buffer. Like there's this gradient of like density. Yeah.
Good.
Was any consideration put into native species versus invasive species with the trees?
Oh, one of our landscape architecture professors, Jamie Benucci, I think she's also with Danby. She told us about the invasive species. She hasn't personally walked the site, but from satellite images, she's like telling us that there's probably invasive species on the site, and we're thinking of not introducing any invasive species.
I'm sure there's invasive shrubs and things, but you wouldn't plan on any invasive trees for landscaping, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. So we might need to alter our.
No Norway maple.
No Norway maples, for instance.
Yeah. And we're thinking also some like small vegetation on the mountain. The mountain itself right now is quite bare.
Yeah, it is.
We probably like landscape that to maybe make it a more attractive destination coming from nice city.
How did it get its name?
Ashton Mountain. Ashton, we heard from Ted. He's probably online right now, but he told us that Rick named it after his granddaughter, Ashton.
Very cool. Thanks.
So as Ray talked about earlier, we're proposing a development plan that develops the site from west to east in the first phase, looking at the community area first, and then the first set of townhouses, and then further townhouses, and lastly, the single family homes.
Would there be a constraint to do it in that order, or could it be pursued? If for instance, you happen to get, we happen to get, a grant to do single family houses, say, could that be done as the initial phase instead of the terminal phase?
So this was what we proposed, because like as we developed the site, we paved the roads into the site, so that's why we proposed it in this order.
I think it's definitely possible, because what we're like, the basis of the plan is basically roads. Like you just notice that these accesses, like if you pave the road next to Ashton Mountain first, like that could be entirely possible. We're just following development from left to right. That was like the vision.
Yeah, also we have better knowledge that this soil is probably cleaner than that soil because of the location of vehicles on the site.
I just want to add that also because the community center is probably like one of the biggest requirements for the community. So it's good to have that area set up first.
Yeah.
And also you'll notice the Dobson Road extension is completely taken out because of its awkward curvature. So roads are really important. The first thing of this plan is to modify the existing network. Yeah, roads come in first and then.
Roads where you need them, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. The rendering.
Okay, I'll pick over for Leo. So some of our great team members put together some renderings here, and I'll kind of explain where they are in the context of the site plan that you've been seeing. So number one over here is looking at the townhouses. We have some shaded parking with some trees. And I'll say that this style of townhouse is up for interpretation. We're interested in feedback for that. We've oscillated between it so many times that it actually shows a different style on that poster. So looking forward to that. Number two here, we're looking in the Cherry Grove area toward the wetland or pond at the front. Some people enjoying the trail network that the team has put together. And then in the back, number three, you have the look at the single family houses with some common areas with green space in between them. Yes.
What are the pink flowers on the ground in picture 2?
Those are fallen petals from the trees, but.
They look like they're growing. You know what? Wonderful feedback. So thank you. We should get those to grow. They're very pretty. And then this would be our community center concept at the moment. Think daycare, like flex space, maybe yoga, maybe like a meeting room if you work remotely. And different sorts of programming that the community might need. That would be number 4. So right at the front of the site over by Danby Motors. Number 5, we have this town square concept that we've come up with to kind of bring these different age groups and housing groups together. So that might include a playground, pavilions, benches, things like that. And then number 6 in the far corner, sort of like over past the creek, we have the trail network. You see benches and then like this other pond area heading back toward the more developed area.
Does that pond exist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go back.
Yeah.
That's fine.
As I remember.
It's like across the creek.
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
go over there on
Oh,
our
it's the other
site
side of the
visit.
creek, yeah.
Yeah.
So challenges with the site, or potential contamination, the land hasn't fully been cleaned as of yet. It was the broadest of the project as we discussed, and this will be continue to be an issue in implementation. This is a very large project for the site and future flooding problems. Our plan follows like a buffer along Buttermilk Creek, but there are risks of flooding that have been described by community members. The next steps include further exploring the sewer and water considerations for our project, fully figuring that out. Seeking funding for this project and implementation. Potential developers, which we have done research on, but that would be implemented by looking for developers who would be interested in the project, and environmental testing.
Apart from the investigation of potential contamination, what kind of environmental testing did you have in mind?
I think like the soil is a big aspect of it because I don't know too much about the extent of what leaked from the vehicles. So I think that that's our biggest concern, but I don't know if Ray or Carrie, you want to add anything? We talked a little bit about planting vegetation of sorts that would potentially mitigate some of the leakage.
There's photomediation plants, but talk to Jamie again.
Assuming there was some.
Yeah, maybe, well, if there was, like, Jamie was telling us maybe you don't even need the plants and saying that the soil itself can decontaminate the hydrocarbons that come from the vehicles. But it's like something we need to do research on.
And test, yeah, just to be sure before we
Yeah.
put houses in and everything. So yeah, I just want to wrap up by saying thank you, and we're really glad that you guys let us come visit your town so many times and, you know, have filled out our surveys and been so receptive to everything that we've been doing. So thank you for your questions and for listening. And yeah, we welcome any more feedback that you guys have.
I was wondering if the types of development, the single family homes and the townhouses, if they're like slated to different age groups, like are the townhouses meant to be for seniors? Or are the single family homes meant to be for seniors? Was that thought about?
For senior housing, it's mostly designated for townhouses because they're close to more road access and getting funds with the community center. I would say that would be for more targeted for seniors.
So one thing just to consider is that for senior housing, you don't want them to have to walk upstairs, and typically townhouses are 3 stories.
Yeah.
These days, so that's something to consider.
I had also interviewed with a real estate agent in town, and I was actually one of the biggest questions was in this senior oriented housing, have stairs been a consideration? And she was actually saying that not really for everybody, that I know that in some places, people really have that consideration. Some seniors are requested to, or that they like to, you know, they can put in the steps, or that they you configure it differently, let's say, but that generally that it is needed regardless of being it's useful.
What were you gonna say, Carrie?
Is it just?
This is the microphone up here, it's on the table, so if anybody else has any questions, oh, you put it over there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
The last one there and then.
Well, that's because I thought they were gonna speak and then they're both answering.
Go to the site plan that shows like.
The rendering one?
Yeah, like just before the renderings, I think that's a good graphic.
one?
Is that one right here.
Yeah.
I just had one other comment, and I'll try to speak to the microphone as best as possible. It would be nice to see what kind of sustainable measures are being taken, like kind of in one slide, like, are you offering solar power? Are you gonna have any water recycling? I guess well and septic is water recycling.
and any other sort of sustainable features that will be offered. I think that's a very good selling point for a lot of developers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we thought about solar panels. We'd love to think about. Thank you, Pacific, for coming to all of these. She's been at all of them. So.
Yeah.
Is there this is a PowerPoint, I imagine, or something like that? You have this available online. I had a hard time understanding and hearing you. I'm sorry very much, but I like your the visual presentation. Can I get this online somewhere?
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
get it
I'll
later.
make, Greg has it, he would
Thank you.
be happy to disseminate, and like, we are also, I didn't know this, but we are all in the process of putting together a final report for you guys, which will be a very lengthy, probably 30-page document with all of our recommendations, all of these visuals and things like that, and then it'll be sent in a PDF to the town. That's our sort of parting gift to Danby, so I'm sure Greg will put that out to the world.
You can put it on the website.
Oh, that would be so good, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody on the, I don't know, but I don't know. You can. I have to get out. It doesn't necessarily look at me.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Is there anybody on Zoom who has questions would like to comment? Pop up. Oh, there we go, Ted.
Oh, you're muted, Ted.
Thanks. I
There you
want to say this is a fairly reasonable proposal. It actually looks useful. But I'd like to ask the question of the development of the developers, of the students who developed this proposal. Did your coursework and did your design incorporate the question, what happens to this when a developer whose primary motivation is probably profit? What will happen, what protections have you built into this to make sure it doesn't turn into Levittown?
To what? To what?
Levittown.
Levittown.
Okay, so Ted, thank you for your question. So we are appreciative to all the emails and things you've sent as well. So thank you for that. What I'll say is that we are Design Connect. So our main job here is to design our most feasible idea. We have provided recommendations for people that we thought might be good developers in our final report, but we aren't responsible for what the developer might do. Our hope is that even without this could have turned it into a Levittown, and our hope is that we've guided them away from that using some of the guidelines of the hamlet developments to create something that would be really useful and more beneficial, but we are not developers, and yeah, we hope that this steers a developer in hopefully the right direction.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this plan was very much based on the housing needs document, which was aligned with the current market for Danby. So I assume any developers coming in will do a market analysis of the area. And given our understanding of the current market, I don't think there would be a desire for overdevelopment of this site.
Yeah, we have spoken to real estate people, we've spoken to community members, we've spoken to developers, and this is what we came up with after all of that. So we're hoping that these developers that would be interested in the site. Also, Shane, I think, has a vision probably too, and he would fight for the right developer, maybe, I don't know.
No, maybe not.
If I may add one thing, due to the soil conditions in the most sensitive parts of the site, i.e. like the other side of the creek or the front by the main road. It's really not conducive to extensive development, so the parts that are most built up for like recreational use, it would not be really possible to overdevelop.
Yeah, good point, thank you.
So I saw that there was green space and also recreational space in the pie chart. What is the difference between those two? And can you guys point to where those would be?
Karen, do you want to go?
Green space and gathering space.
Green space and
Recreation.
recreational space.
So recreational space really is probably an umbrella term, but we do have one recreational space here. There should be a playground where the daycare center is. Playground somewhere here near the pavilion. Green space would be everywhere else is covered in grass, which Ray mentioned that riparian buffer, there are different types of like. Lengths of grass, lawn and meadow, for example, are where the kids and children should be playing.
Is any of the space like intentionally set aside to just be nature and not necessarily be for recreation or grass?
This area on top.
Because the picture around the pond looked like a park,
Which pond?
like it looked like it was
The lower one or
mowed, I guess.
Rendering.
Wait, isn't this house?
Oh, but this is what I mean, this area, the renders we were working on the renders, but they're not supposed to be.
So that's not necessarily like a mowed space.
No, I wouldn't add more trees in the renders.
But what's mode is shown in the diagram. The lightest color of green is lawn.
The darker that it gets, the more dense, right?
Yeah, more than, so the darkest green is unmanaged forest, if you notice.
I'm seeing mowed up by the road there in front of the pond and around the recreation center. And then, so that's, yeah, and then mowed around the units, but then the rest is mostly, the next color of green up is not mowed at all. Or not mowed.
It's a
much.
managed forest.
Managed forest.
And the darkest green is unmanaged.
So how do you define a managed forest in this?
Managed as in there needs to be like cleanup, so like tree falls down, like someone needs to go out there to like clean it up, right? There's gonna be trails that run through there. So I think that's another topic of concern, like how do we maintain such a huge site, who's like in charge? We don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah. Well, I'll
Is it
say
a
that on the
fire
question about,
concern, or why would we have to clean up a tree that's out in the darker green areas?
All of
If
these
it fell?
for managed forests, they're near residential areas.
Yeah.
That's why
Not the
they're.
darker green, that's not.
Well, the middle green, I guess.
Yeah. You know, if a tree falls on the path, you need to cut it out of the
there's a
way.
lot of trail, that was, when I was, you asked about the recreational amenities, one of the biggest recreational amenities are the different trails that Imogen was talking about, like the bike, the walking trails and things.
So if a tree were to fall in that second lightest green color, but not on a trail, it would be important that somebody would come cut that up and move
That's
it away.
let's not clean it up.
No, I think managed forest just means it's not like, you could probably walk through it
No.
versus like this, I probably wouldn't, because you might get like ticks and bramble or something like
I
that.
feel like Dotson Park is a good example of managed forest where we're like mowing paths through it, keeping it clear in those path areas, but kind of everything outside of that is left to.
Yeah,
to
but
the-
not
Yeah.
necessarily preventing all like shrub growth.
Totally, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, that's a concern because of flooding too, like we definitely want to leave some like vegetation, that's like a priority here, and also green space was a priority from everyone, so. We actually had it a lot more green, but we decided to add greens, so.
That's right.
Ted had a question.
Thank you. You know, as I was looking at that drawing again, I remembered a previous description of a housing development down in West Danby. Joel, you'll probably remember what I'm talking about on the pavilion lot. And one of the reasons that was ultimate, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons that ultimately never went anywhere was that it was intended for seniors with senior housing, but there were absolutely no services to serve them. This particular site does have access to transportation, which step up from the West Danby plan, but where exactly would they go for services? Is there anything, I don't think I saw anything built into this development.
Well, the community center.
No, I meant like, you know, a store that they can
Like a
walk through,
pharmacy.
a
post-
doctor's office.
Like pharmacy is like usually tied in with maybe like senior facilities like kind of near there or like a.
Yeah, you crossed that bridge early on in the process, as I recall.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we determined that the community center is like pretty in flex. We haven't come up with like what specific programmatic elements would exist at the community center. But when we considered initially doing a more commercialized site, we determined that due to the proximity to Ithaca, like commercial offerings might not, from a real estate perspective, thrive there, but like, again, this space in the front would probably be where it would go. I mean, the idea for the community center is pretty flexible, and like, if a pharmacy was interested, I think that it could work. Yeah.
if we're having trouble keeping pharmacies in the city, I have to imagine that we want to put one in Danby.
Yeah, it's like,
And even closer than the city for pharmacies, you can get cannabis at several places on the way.
Well, yeah, we have those here too, you know, just down the street, so. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
You don't have, if you have a question, come on up. No, they can't, she can't hear you, she's thinking that you need to come up there.
We can hear you, but the Zoom audience can't.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's right.
You don't have to answer this. What grade did you get on the project?
oh, we haven't,
He's grading this.
yeah, no kidding. They all got in. It is, but it kind of depends what we turn in our final report, you know, but in my heart, A+ for everyone. What do you think? We should get.
Yeah, I think so. I think we got a plan.
Okay.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Or do you want to take?
Do we need this one? Do we need the poster for anything, or do you want me to hear the poster? Yeah, okay, well, this will remain here if you guys have questions. about it.
Great.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Good stuff, Sharon.
I am surprised that, we're not in a current in 2025 where all new development, one of the first things they say is we've got to plan for solar on all of those.
Can we please speak one at a time?
Rob, nothing's happening yet. Tyler was just remarking that it would be nice to have incorporated solar into the design.
I was just saying that, I feel like at this point in our history, we need to be defaulting to solar panels on new construction. You know, that should be the default.
I don't think they talked about energy hardly at all, so that's, yeah, I mean, that's something that could be put in. It's only a concept of a design. Yeah.
Paris has a law.
What?
All new construction in Paris has to have solar panels.
Well, nobody said it didn't. Nobody said they didn't want to do that. Yep.
Maybe they'll work on
There was no
wind.
indication of it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, wind.
That's what I wish they would do.
Right,
I
wind.
wish they would Finish that.
We put a windmill on top of the mountain.
Right.
Yeah, they had other things beside wind. Someday, maybe. You know, but stop.
Water, if they get enough rain, we could have water power in from the tower. One dream, we can dream up all kinds.
We could put
I'm
it
gonna try and figure out how to send this to her.
pump in the creek. No, power, yeah.
A
A
mill.
little hydro, mill to pump the water up.
Plant.
All right,
Okay.
let's see. There's a bunch of- They're all accessible by link. That brings us to the approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve, was it April 21st
Yep.
meeting minutes?
Mhm. I'll second that. Any comments?
No.
Okay. So, all right, first for the evening here.
Connors,
For minutes.
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Gannon.
Yes.
Excellent.
I move that we approve the general fund abstract 9 vouchers 178 through 196 for $24,766.34. Second.
Comments? Okay,
Connors,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Gannon.
yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll move the highway fund abstract 9 for vouchers 75 through 81 for $23,213.66.
Second.
Comments?
No.
Okay,
Connors,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Canyon.
yes.
Thank you.
So this very controversial flood damage prevention law, there were no comments. I move, what number, which law are we up to? Is this 4?
4.
Local law number 4. Flood damage prevention law.
Number 4.
Yeah, this is replacing the previous law which regulated flood hazard.
Number 4 of
Areas.
2025.
Replacing it with the revised one, which accommodates the new maps.
Second.
Any discussion about that?
I have, where's the map? Is that somewhere we can get, do we have a copy of the map or?
We do, we have paper copies.
Okay.
And then, yeah, there are, the online maps are, that they can be in PDF, but they're also interactive.
Okay. All right.
Did we end up, you remember you proposed sending people notice?
Yeah, we did it because last time,
Because they've all gotten notices.
and then the county in that time sent us a reminder that they had been, those
Right.
folks had been
Yes.
notified at the time. And they sent us a list of properties where folks' structures would be in the floodplain. And said that they had notified them.
Right.
And that their insurance company would be notifying them.
Mhm. Yeah, that was a fact, thoroughly noticed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, good.
I mean, I just had a couple of questions about wording on some of this stuff.
Sure.
Do you have a copy of?
You have it in front of me, but it's all right.
The 1.2. And then 2 under that, it says, designed to require that uses vulnerable to floods. Is it uses vulnerable to floods or sites? I mean.
Well, the site's already
Uses?
described as vulnerable because that's what the floodplain. flood map
I know,
allows.
but what is I mean, to me, it makes no sense when it's saying uses vulnerable to floods, including facilities which serve.
Well, like if you
Anyway.
put a house in a floodplain, it could be vulnerable to being flooded if it was there. So that's a use.
Okay, so it's the bill.
Well, it could be.
I always
it
just
could be
think about it in
commercial-
terms of
commercial
plan,
structure.
code.
Yeah.
Stuff uses is like, what are you gonna use it for, not what's gonna physically be there. Okay. Doesn't make sense to me, but.
I mean, you have a good point. I've seen that confusing language in elsewhere. Where, you talk, what you really mean is a building when you're talking about a use.
Right.
Well, a building isn't an only use. It could be, I don't know what, I mean, it could be, other things
An
could be
agricultural
called a
use.
use.
Yeah,
It's like
right,
Yeah.
to protect your
right.
land.
And you can farm in a floodplain.
So that's a
Including
use.
facilities which serve such uses.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the
Anyway, it
building.
doesn't have to be the
Stop.
building that's serving
Stop.
it.
Yeah, let's see, what was it?
I have.
Regulate. 5 is regulate the construction of flood barriers. I mean,
Right.
do we want, I mean, I would rather see regulate the construction of any barrier which will unnaturally divert floodwaters. I mean, not just flood barrier, I mean,
Well, I mean.
any barrier.
Yeah, but that's what it means.
What it means, what? Any barrier.
It means anything that you put up which would be barrier to the floodwaters.
Yeah, but it's
Not-
saying that in the next part of the sentence, so why say it twice? I mean, regulate the construction of flood barriers which will unnaturally divert floodwaters.
Mhm.
Aren't we talking about regulating the construction of any barrier? I mean, it
Well,
doesn't have to
barrier-
be a flood barrier. It could be a barrier to keep the cows in or something.
Well, the barrier, well, good case in point, a barrier that would keep the cows in wouldn't necessarily be a barrier to floodwater.
Sure, but that's not what the sentence is saying.
Well, I think it is saying, what you were concerned about is things that would be barriers to floodwater. That's why it says flood barriers that would be.
I think the
barriers to
difference
flood.
between how you guys are reading it is that you're saying something that's built with the purpose of stopping a flood, and you're saying something that's built that has the effect of stopping a flood,
No, that's the opposite.
or, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that makes no sense to me. That's okay.
But if you
Well,
read
those
it
were-
as a flood barrier being something that has the effect of being a barrier to a flood.
But it's
then there
like
would be a
saying it
problem.
twice in
Which
the
is
same
what-
sentence.
Yeah, true.
And I'm just, it doesn't, I think those were the main.
This is, not language that we assembled, but. And
No.
it's interesting.
So
that
we
some-
have to keep this language, we can't change it.
Don't know if we could do that. What's
Anyway,
interesting is that, this language, which is the email language, is probably used all over the country.
Right.
Wasn't crafted more carefully with attention to that kind of potential misinterpretation.
So somebody could put up a barrier that's not a flood barrier,
Right.
even though
Well,
it
it's
acts like a flood.
barrier
It causes a problem.
keep the cows in, but let the water through.
Oh, well.
Yeah, like I feel like if someone put up a barrier that was a barrier to the flood, but they said, well, that's not what this is. I feel like we'd have a pretty strong case to say, well, that is what it is,
Yeah,
right?
right. Well, it's causing the flood. It's causing the diversion of flood water.
But I guess, why would we want to, it would be nice to have it just be clear enough that you wouldn't have to like litigate it or, argue with somebody about it. If it just said any barrier, that would probably be clearer, right?
I would think so, but
You have that flexibility.
We can certainly ask.
I don't think it's that important. Well, it's nice to have things worded so that it's clear.
Yeah.
And on page 7, a couple places it's talking about effective date is June 18th. The scientific and engineering report entitled flood insurance, blah, 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 dated June 18th, 2025.
Right. That's the effective date for the new map.
Right, okay. So that's the basis for establishing the areas of special that haven't been done yet.
Although the maps are, they're
gonna be dated June
they're
18th.
they're promulgated, but they're not effective until the effective date is June
It's the
18th.
effective date. That was to allow people time to change all.
Okay,
this
that was number 1, and number 2 says something else with the same date on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They give it an effective date just to, give a point in time when you're actually reporting on.
Right.
These maps.
I
that are
got that.
applicable.
Yeah.
And that's why we have until June 19th to get it passed too, because we need to adopt them before that date.
So do we have the scientific and engineering report? The flood insurance study, Tompkins County, is that done, actually? Do we have it?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be dated until June 18th. I don't know.
The question for Bridge.
Never mind, that's it. I mean, if nobody wants to change any of the wording, it's not the biggest deal, but
I didn't,
it would have no.
well, when I read it, I didn't have that interpretation. They did do the studies, because I know it's a big thing in the city, where it was a lot more of an impact on built environment with the expansion of the flood, under your floodplain.
Yeah, I remember when we first got that law.
Yeah,
when we
well, I
took
went to
over, and
meetings,
the
so
maps.
they were handing out information to the residents and stuff, so. Yeah, it was a couple of years ago,
There was a
actually.
good article a couple of weeks ago, and I forget what it was, Ithaca Times or Tompkins Weekly, about the difference of opinion between the FEMA and the city over how to which underlying scientific documentation you use to mitigate or point to the mitigation of the impacts. And it made a big difference to the cost.
Yeah.
With it, which one you used. The city was arguing for one set of, their approach, and FEMA had a different approach, which was, as far as the city was concerned, impractical to mitigate.
Right.
And Danby doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
No, no. I mean, it impacts how many residents? I mean,
I forget, it was a.
Well, in terms
The
of the
corner
actual
of-
dwellings being close enough to the creek to be affected, it was only like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One is a corner of the barn that up there. I don't remember
Yeah.
the rest of them. I looked at them all when it happened.
Yeah. I mean, some of the buildings that are potentially affected are barns. Barns and sheds.
There are 17 structures. But of the 17 structures, about 10 of them are addressed, meaning the other ones are probably just outbuildings.
shed and stuff, yeah.
We haven't provided the study.
What's that?
We have been provided the study.
We have been.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the study if
That's
you
the
want.
study.
Yeah.
That's
If you
gonna
wanna
be
s-
dated June 18th.
It is dated June
25.
18th. Effective.
That's really
June
effective.
18th,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because you don't date it when you get done with it, because you can't take it into effect
Whatever.
that fast, and that screws up everybody's insurance, so you need to put it on
Right.
hold.
If you'd like to study the study.
Hmm?
If you'd like to study the study.
I spent too much time on it. Hmm.
I wonder whether FEMA will be around to implement it.
Oh, really? Probably not.
What did you say, Joel?
FEMA.
I wonder whether FEMA is
Oh,
gonna be
right,
around to
exactly.
implement it.
Exactly.
Caring about any of it is all government overreach after all. So let's see, we have a motion in a second, so we're discussing.
Right, thank you.
Are you ready to vote or do you want? We could postpone if you wanted to, you know,
I mean, and we're voting to approve.
well, to pass the law,
To
which
pass
would
the law.
implement the, adopt the regulations and the map of what the places are.
So basically, the law is same as it was in the past.
Right, the law doesn't change the
Changes,
whole
but
lot.
Simply changes the maps.
That may be true. I don't think the regulations that apply to the floodplain changed greatly. They did change a little somewhat, because I remember looking at it.
Well, people's insurance certainly changed.
Well, yeah, that's the main thing, you know, if
That's
you're,
the main
if you're
thing.
in the floodplain.
Right.
And
That's the biggest thing.
then you're required to have insurance if you have a mortgage.
Right.
With, and then your bank requires it, or you have a federal mortgage, both of which require that you have flood insurance. To be enabled to access the flood insurance, you have to have the local law saying we're participating.
Right.
Typically a way to try and get out of having to pay for anything, which is a lot of the laws. If I set up the law that, yeah.
I mean, but if you've got a property and you're in the floodplain, you don't have to have insurance unless you have you have to borrow money from someplace where it's required to have it. If you want to risk it, you don't have to have insurance.
What?
But it also gives you access to good prices for insurance, and that's what we want to
Absolutely.
guarantee.
Yeah.
We
Well,
don't want to
having the
screw
law
the
does.
people who live in the floodplains
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
The thing about having the map is that maybe when people come in thinking about building a house,
Yeah.
then we have the map and we can
Yeah.
say,
Yeah,
might not be the best place to place your house.
it's
Well,
already.
not only that,
Yeah.
it tells you if you want to do something in this flood
Yeah.
mapped area.
Yeah.
These are the regulations for doing it, and
Right,
it doesn't let you put a house in a place like that unless you raise it up above the flood level.
Right.
The biggest change, Pat, to your question, what was changed really from the one that was 1991 was the last
Okay.
law that Danby's replacing. It's really just the area
That's what I thought.
that's covered. Yeah, it's just the floodplains are just now mapped to be different.
Right. Right, so otherwise it's the same laws we had in the past, but we're updating it for the new DEC maps.
Well,
FEMA maps, yeah.
FEMA maps, right.
And Catherine, to your, so whenever anybody comes in for a permit or anything, I have my own interactive map that I use with all of Danby's. There's a lot of layers on it. Danby has a lot of sensitive areas, protected areas, and its zoning districts, overlay zone districts that it wants protected. Those are all used in analysis of building permits or any site plans that come into my office to make sure that they're not impacting those resources. So yeah, the new maps are already on, ready to go, even though they're not effective yet. They're still there and available for people when they're applying.
Right, I mean, it would be nice if somebody were to walk in between now and June 19th or whatever they say. It's about to take into effect, go into effect is, you're going to be affected by this.
Right.
Unlikely though, but we're positioned to.
Yeah, but as Greg just said, there's lots of layers on that. So
Yeah.
there are other things
Yeah,
that probably
yes.
that can
Yeah.
easily deter or change the location site.
Mhm.
I mean, the town hall property has floodplain on it.
Yeah.
Yes,
The
yeah.
floodplain comes right up over here.
Yeah.
We could put some barriers up. We can make skate parks.
Flood barrier.
You have to go through.
I mean, we can't make them skate park.
No.
The skate barrier.
Walls, or whatever you call them, not ramps.
Pipes.
I forget the word. Anyway,
Anyway, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Mariah, vote.
Connors,
Yes.
Hunter,
yes,
Stein,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Gagnon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, Safe Streets for All. As I think Ted pointed out, and others have pointed out, we're being asked to approve a resolution which adopts a plan which hasn't been finalized yet.
And we talked about this earlier today.
Yeah.
This could be kicked to the next meeting to, the draft plan is out there. It's available for comment until May 14th. It might not specifically call out Danby yet because, in fact, I just was looking through it today. It doesn't seem it's a complete document.
Right, it doesn't have all the appendices.
Correct, it doesn't have all the appendices that we reviewed at a couple of board meetings and at the planning board meeting with Danby's specific recommendations for street improvements here on Danby Road and then down in West Danby. So though that appendices has not been planned yet, so.
All that's in the plan that the public can see at this point is where the Danby sites are that are being looked at. I mean, it mentions the intersection and this segment, but it doesn't get into the specifics of what's recommended for it.
So
We
it is a
should
little
delay it
odd.
till the next meeting.
Sorry,
I assume we should just delay it till the next meeting at least.
it's up to the board.
That's how I feel.
I would recommend delaying it to the next meeting.
Mhm.
And we can just determine what's available at the next meeting.
Sure.
They gave us they were hoping to have resolutions passed by what, May 21st?
First,
So the next meeting is on the 19th, right?
yeah.
So we could, with the hope that they'll get the appendices available to the public. Maybe you can contact them and say, we've had several people interested in commenting here, but you don't have the information available to the public so that they can intelligently comment.
Feels a little circular because these resolutions will be an appendix in the plan, but then these resolutions reference the plan as an exhibit in the resolution, so.
Yes.
It's, yeah, so there's frustration in the public, it's understandable.
Yeah, well, you're asking people to comment, but you don't really have the information if you don't comment on.
But that's why we'll have it next meeting.
Do we
Well,
want
I
to
wonder if
discuss?
they wait maybe two meetings.
Well, we can't do
So
that,
that's.
not without,
deadline.
not running over the May 21st.
Well,
I'll reach out to the project managers tomorrow. It's
Maybe they
a
can-
few different consultants. I would imagine Danby's not the only town asking about this.
Mhm.
It seems a little circular here.
You would
so-
think. Yeah.
Has anyone pointed out to them that zero vision is a terrible name for a policy resolution? And that it's an even worse name for
You mean
a
about safe?
traffic policy resolution?
Vision zero, vision. Yeah.
Yeah, visions.
We want no vision.
I mean, for any policy, that's a terrible name. This is not about traffic.
Yeah.
I may have stated that backwards. I think it is vision zero as opposed to zero.
It does say vision zero.
Okay,
It's-
that's way better, I guess.
It's not.
Okay, we'll post it for next time.
So we have to change the signature in the bank accounts.
Yes, there's, well, this is like cleaning up this room. You know, there's a bunch of stuff that's been hanging around forever. We've got these two accounts that we haven't used, but we haven't closed them either. They've got like a penny in each one. It called to my attention that, you know, why don't you get rid of them? So to get rid of them, we have to change the signatory because it's still in Rick's name. Rick and Norbert Nolte.
Yes.
And Norbert's no longer with us at all. So a resolution has been drafted to change the signatory to me.
I move we approve
And
the
then instructing me to
resolution.
close the account.
I move the approve the resolution, to change the signatory into Old Tompkins County Trust Company bank accounts.
And direct the supervisor to close the accounts.
Okay,
That's the second part.
that's part of the whole thing, yes.
I'll second that. Any, got it? Right.
Connors,
yes,
Hunter,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes,
Woodworth,
Yes.
Gagnon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Agenda items for next time.
what's that?
Besides,
State
besides the
streets.
state streets for all.
Mhm.
What is the status of our efforts to put together a list of I've been meaning to ask Highway, did they ever get the letter saying, here's the order to go with the letter that they sent us saying that the speed limit's been reduced on,
I don't think so.
you know, Sugar Hill, and Laura said Laura's at a birthday party.
Oh,
for-
that's right. Oh, yeah.
For Charlotte tonight, your granddaughter.
I'll ask tomorrow.
Because, well, I mean, whether or not we got that, we should get together a prospective list of candidate streets to decide amongst us who we want to put in the next round of requests.
Yeah,
You want to put?
well,
that
we
together?
have a list already
Right.
started. I mean,
Yeah.
oh,
So we need to sort of make it an item of discussion and say, okay, let's go with this. You want to bring one forward?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, Pat, you're gonna look into town hall meeting use policies at other places.
Don't have it yet,
Yeah, we can get it by next time.
probably.
we didn't come back around to those heat detectors.
Oh, no, because we're waiting on you.
Well,
Do you have
yeah,
the-
you know, I
the
guess
information?
yeah, I didn't forward that email to you guys. I spoke with Steve Courtright. I got an email from him and he said that we basically have to do it because of code compliance.
Oh,
He said that we don't really have a choice.
so the code changed? too?
I can forward the email to everybody, but he said that we are currently out of compliance with code and that
Oh,
to be in compliance, we have to replace all three of them.
And I, for one, would not vote for doing less than was suggested, even if, because we're not experts. Sorry, but I would not
well,
vote
if the
for
code requires it, then you don't have a whole lot of
Right, no choice in.
choice in the
that.
matter anyway.
It's like saying that we haven't had something, so let's not worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard that statement.
Why
a few
wasn't it
times.
done?
Well,
Well,
we
the-
held
We're
off
looking at-
because it wasn't clear. The new ones are addressable, where evidently
Right.
the old ones aren't. And so the question was, is addressability of value to, you know, what's wrong with the old ones, basically, was the question, you know? And evidently, what's wrong with the old ones is they're not code compliant.
Yeah,
But
but like the guy.
we didn't know
they
that when we
came
asked this
and they-
question.
You know, maybe it got
Well,
confused because it ended up with us, but you know, it's not thousands of dollars. Why wasn't it just done?
Well, it actually adds up because it was it's the labor associated with installing them. And as well as the cost of the units, which we had the cost of the units. And I forget what they were, they're $150 a piece or something.
I think more than that. I think they're about 250, but
They're not expensive.
Well, I mean, that's up, you know, it's
That's not
$750.
expensive.
Plus the installation.
my concern was that I wasn't sure when the old ones were installed, and if they had been installed in the past couple years and it was
Right.
modern 2 years ago, then, you know, I would be worried that it was
Thank
just
God, yeah.
just a way of
Right.
you know, bilking.
Right.
But
But
you know, like you said,
probably-
I'm not an expert, and
They
the
probably
people who
pay for
work in this
the-
building would like to have state-of-the-art detectors, I'm sure. So like you said, it's not expensive, and the building is valuable to Danby. We should have
Yeah.
state-of-the-art detectors for $1,000.
Did you determine whether or not they were in the old building, the new building, both?
Steve didn't say in the email.
Well, the other thing is, we had a records, maintenance conference here, or whatever the right words are, and, the towns that lost everything in fires, including Danby. And they've also, you know, that happened. We don't have records from when the monument, a few things because it was a fire. And then the other
Fire
towns,
and
they get
flood.
water damage.
Water damage is responsible for most of Danby's losses.
I'll forward the email,
Okay.
so that you guys can all
I'm
see,
wrong about
the way
what
Steve
the
explained
cause
it.
is, but it happened.
We used to have it in a low wet.
Well, do they have to come to the, I mean, is it because of the amount of money that, with the procurement policy or something? I mean, why?
Why delay it?
Why,
did
no,
it
why
come
did,
to the
should
board?
it- should that, why did it come to the board in the first place?
Right. It just added more time.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Well, as it
mean,
turned out,
So,
does somebody have to get permission to do that?
well,
If
over,
the people who do our inspections say you have to have this, and the code guy is saying we have to do this, why didn't we just do it?
I agree.
well, I mean, we do have a procurement policy. So, you know,
Right, but-
it adds up to $1,000. We need me to approve it. And, I could have done it.
Okay, we'll do it.
Why did I?
Yeah, can we do it?
I could do it now.
Can we do it now? Can we vote on it now?
We don't have to vote.
We don't have.
Oh, we don't have to
We
vote.
don't have to vote.
We
Oh,
shouldn't
yeah,
have.
we
I
should.
mean, what we
That-
got, what we've got now is clarity as a
Yeah,
result of.
I guess
Yeah, I should have forwarded that email.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we'll just go.
So I will make an appointment to have those installed.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you.
Does that approval by Joel have to be in writing? You better write something, yeah.
Sure,
Well,
Joel, write me
it
an
should be
email.
part of it should be part of the tracking of the,
Yeah,
of the procurement.
yeah.
Right, so, anything else? Good. All right, well, then we can adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
That was a really cool presentation. That was really cool to
It
see.
was fun, yeah.
I held back from wanting to ask him everything about the software they used. Yeah, I had a bunch